This is Marshawn Lynch. But on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So I'm here to make sure you don't miss any of the action this football season. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your takes to the test. The app is really simple to use and available in 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport, pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you can cash in. With simple stats and fan-friendly policies, Prize Picks is the best place to make your picks. Most importantly, they don't play about your paper. All transactions on the apps are fast, safe, and secure.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show. Dick and Doug.
Hey, Dick Morris.
Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Well, before you go any further, I want to just shout out to Rudy Giuliani. And hope he's okay. If you're listening, Rudy, I don't know. But
poor Rudy.
Let's all think about Rudy for a little bit.
In a car crash and hurt in New Hampshire. He used to carry New Hampshire.
Then now they carried him. But no, so I think he's out. I've been calling him and texting him. I haven't been able to get him.
Well, God bless him.
Somebody just told me he's out yesterday, a couple of days ago. So I think he's going to be all right.
Going to talk a little bit at the opening about the jobs report earlier this week. It showed only 22,000 jobs created in the last month, which is less than had been projected. Usually you're getting about 150 or 200,000 jobs a month. So it may indicate slowdown, even though Trump is attacking the data, saying it's not accurate and that it will become more accurate as he changes it. But the fact is that there's a lot that Trump can do to stimulate the economy and particularly to deal with the housing market and the lack of inventory of homes, which is retarding construction and forcing up interest rates, increasing homelessness, and generally slowing down the economy. The big thing he can do is have a holiday on capital gains taxes on private homes. In the campaign, Trump floated the idea of making private homes exempt from capital gains taxes. And I think that would be an enormous change. But also you could do it on a temporary basis, where you do it in 3 or 4 years and then you end it. And you say it's a holiday during that period, which will encourage everybody quickly to sell their homes and refinance and do all that stuff, which they normally would just wait for. So you have huge amounts of money tied up in real estate in the United States, which is tied up because people are reluctant to sell, because when they sell, they have to pay capital gains taxes.
Sure.
You don't pay the tax until you sell. So it means people don't sell, they don't refinance, and they don't build, all of which is bad for the economy. So if you simply announce that private family homeowners would not be subject to capital gains, or they would be, but for only a limited period, you can give housing and the economy a boost that is very substantial and just as important as if the Fed actually lowered interest rates.
Dick, did I hear you talk to him about this yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday we had a phone call.
I thought I heard.
I suggested this to him. I said, you don't have to wait for Powell to deal with this. You could do it yourself. Now, rumors are swirling that Trump may hire Adams and Silva to beat Mondambi.
Sliwa.
While vowing to still run for re-election, Adams did not dismiss the possibility of joining Trump's administration on Wednesday, as sources said conversations were underway about a potential job opportunity. Eric Adams said that he subsequently said that he was not going to take that. When I asked Trump about it last night, he said, well, Adams turned it down.
Good.
So that may not happen.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think you leave Cuomo and Adams in that race with Cuomo, Adams, and then Mandami, whatever his name is, right? It gives Curtis a better chance, I think.
Yeah, it does. But the Adams running or not running is not an important idea because it gets to getting only 8 or 9% of the vote. And if he
But
drops
that's 89% of a vote that would go to Mandami. No?
It might not. Probably a 3 or 4 point difference, maybe. The important point is that as long as Andrew Cuomo is running, Mandami is going to be elected. And the key thing is Cuomo is unelectable. After what he did with nursing homes.
But why? Hold on. But back up. Why are you saying Cuomo, Mandami will be elected if Cuomo? Why? How do you figure that?
Cuomo is unelectable. When you look at what he's done with the nursing homes, taking thousands of people who had COVID and putting them into nursing homes, forcing them into nursing homes, where they would very likely get COVID, and 6,000 did and died. And people hold that against him. And I think that Cuomo will have difficulty winning in any case. And I don't think that the votes that might go to Adams or might go to Sliwa would end up going to Cuomo. Some would go to Cuomo, some would go to Mandami.
No, but my thought behind this is you're going to get X amount, and it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 2% or 8% to Adams. You're going to get X amount going to Cuomo. Those are votes not going to Mandami, right? So more, well, that doesn't mean Sliwa winning, but Mandami's going to get less. If Cuomo and Adams are out, he's going to get all those votes. I don't know about all.
He can get a lot of those votes. But I think that the key here is not to wait for other candidates to drop out. We have to accept that we have to beat Mandami based on his positions, his anti-Semitism, his turning New York around.
Yes.
And his supporters have to realize that if Mandami were to win and become the mayor, it would be total havoc in New York. First of all, no bond buyer is going to lend New York any money because the mayor is saying he's not going to collect bus fare, he's not going to collect property taxes because he's going to freeze rents, and because they're not going to get repaid, they're not going to lend New York money.
And there's going to
you'll be right back where you were in the mid-'70s, where New York can't get any loans, can't get any money, and everything has to close down.
And what are the landlords, what are the guys that own these buildings going to do? They're going to try to sell it to the city, or they're going to get out? If they,
a lot of them will just walk
rents.
away,
right?
And a lot of them will cut back services,
right?
And a lot will not pay property taxes.
It's going to be a horror show.
That's going to hurt the city.
And then you got the grocery stores. He wants to have them government run.
Yeah,
grocery.
Right.
What is that?
But the key point is that this guy can't govern because without the confidence of the bond market, he's not going to have any money. And then Hochul is going to be faced with a choice. Does she step in and take over New York City?
She will not.
Or does she let it just continue to sink into the muck?
Absolutely. That's what she'll do.
And I think that and it means that to thoroughly win the New York City mayoralty, you need to defeat Mandami and you need to elect a Republican governor of New York.
I got a strategy. We should get Trump to endorse Mandami because then people won't vote for him.
Right.
All the liberals are going, Trump likes him.
But now there's a very interesting study based on Census Bureau data that shows that data on income shows that there were big money gains for all income groups under Trump and almost no gains for the poor and the middle class under Biden. The findings resoundingly contradict the left's frequent claims that Trump's tax and budget policies primarily favored the rich. In truth, the purchasing power of Americans in the bottom quarter of household income rose by 10% during Trump's first term. The poor lost income under Biden's policies because of inflation, even though his priority was to reduce the gap. The gap between the rich and the poor grew wider.
Income inequality?
Yeah. Those income gains under Trump's first term would likely have been higher if COVID had not locked down the economy. But it means that on average, the average family in New York or in the United States gained $8,000 in after-tax income as a result of Trump's tax cuts in 2017. They were huge. They were tremendously important.
A lot of money.
And they've now been rolled over, so they're going to continue. And yet, at the same time, the reduction of income, of real income, and spending power for the middle class and the poor is enormous. The 25th percentile, meaning the richest people, lost $172 on average under Biden. The 50th percentile, the next group, lost $550. And the 75th percentile, which means the poorest people, actually lost $5,967 in income under Biden and gained $9,355 under Trump. In other words, inflation just completely wiped out all of the efforts of Biden to raise incomes for the middle class and the poor. And it was completely self-defeating because he proposed all kinds of new spending, and that new spending heightened inflation, and it sent the value of the dollar plummeting. Now, there was a very important decision that Trump made this week that was not well covered, and Peter Navarro, the czar on trade and tariffs, who I love, issued an op-ed really talking about that. The U.S. is now ending the exemption for tariffs on small packages coming into the United States. The White House fiercely defended the action during a press call, framing it as a defense against the flow of drugs and protection of American workers. This is called the de minimis loophole, which says that if you're sending in a package to the United States that's worth less than $800, we will not put a tariff on it, and we basically won't open it. FedEx and UPS won't scrutinize it, and it'll come in. It's called a de minimis loophole. And Trump said that ending that would save the lives of thousands of Americans by restricting the flow of narcotics and other dangerous and prohibited items into the U.S. and would add $10 billion a year in tariff revenues, creating thousands of jobs. Foreign post offices need to get their act together when it comes to monitoring, policing the use of international mail for smuggling and tax evasion purposes, Peter Navarro said. We're going to help them do that, but at this point they are vastly underperforming express carriers like FedEx, DHL, and UPS. In the age of AI, information saves lives. So other countries have loopholes for small packages, and they don't bother them and don't charge them tariffs. But the minimum loophole was one of the dumbest things this country ever did. If you do your homework and look around the rest of the world, nobody even comes close to the $800 de minimis standard. There's other countries, they're $5 and $10. But the United States opens everything, opens nothing, because it says it's de minimis. And the result is huge amounts of, if you want to ship drugs into the United States,
you can ship 2 pounds.
The way to do it is just send it FedEx.
Right.
And for the most part, it never gets inspected, never gets monitored.
And 2 pounds is a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
So if you do 1,000 of those around the country, you can get a lot of drugs in.
Now, there's very important data that comes from Florida. Florida has changed so much and become so much more Republican that literally 40% of the gains of the Republican Party nationally have taken place in Florida.
40%.
40.
Wow.
Governor Ron DeSantis dropped a political bombshell on Tuesday that sent shockwaves across the Democratic Party leadership throughout the country. DeSantis revealed that his state alone accounts for 40% of the entire nationwide drop in Democratic voter registration over the last 4 years. 40% of the nationwide drop in Democratic voter registration comes from a single state, Florida. DeSantis announced.
Wait, hold 1 second, Dick. You said registration.
Yeah. We don't know how they vote yet.
Right, but I'm saying they didn't lose 40% of their voters. The registration, new people coming in.
They flipped. They went from being Democrats to being Republicans. And
then we should be in a landslide every election.
Well, you're getting close to it.
Wow.
There are already over 5 million people, 4.7, I think, who have flipped their registration from Democrat to Republican.
Great.
Since 2020. But we didn't know that 850,000 of that,
they're down 850
4 million,
down.
come from Florida.
And he says that's not a typo.
850,000 registered Democrats have fled the Democratic Party in Florida since 2020. But here's where it gets even more brutal for the Democratic Party. According to a New York Times report, the Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single state in the country that tracks voter registration by party, which is 30 states. So take the most Democratic state you can think of, like Rhode Island or even D.C., and the number of registered Democrats has dropped and the number of Republicans has increased.
You mean people are actually waking up? The woke is waking up?
Yeah, but this is mainly young voters who are registering for the first time.
And realize.
It's also other voters who go and say, no, you have me listed as a Democrat, switch me to a Republican. And you're talking about 4.5 million people who've done that, including 850,000
And how long, just this year? Or
Since 2020.
Wow, so 4 years or 5 years. Wow.
And the result is that Democrats are losing the edge in key counties, a flashing red light. In Bucks County, a competitive Philadelphia suburb that tilted Republican in registration for the first time, according to state records. In the fall, Trump became the first Republican to carry this county in a century. This spring was Miami-Dade County in Florida, where the number of active Republican voters in the county zoomed past the Democrats just months after Trump became the first Republican presidential candidate to carry Miami-Dade County in decades. As recently as November of 2020, Democrats outnumbered Republicans there by 200,000 statewide, but a 1.2 million voter swing flipped Florida from Democrat to Republican by party registration. North Carolina could be the next battleground state to tip. State records show the Democratic edge there is down to less than 17,000 voters from nearly 400,000 4 years ago. So one after another, these swing states are permanently becoming Republican. And while you know that in off-year elections, the party in power tends to lose votes, it's absolutely incredible that this is filtering
Miami
down.
was pretty much blue, weren't they?
Yeah, the whole Miami made Florida blue, and Bucks County made Pennsylvania blue.
That's Pennsylvania, got it.
And now they're flipping.
Great.
Which is amazing. It's working its way all the way down.
All right, so the Houthis, prime minister, killed in Israeli strike. The prime minister of Yemen's Houthi government, Ahmad Jalab al-Rahi, I don't care what his name is, along with several ministers, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on the capital, Sana'a, according to state released by Houthi media and reported by Times of Israel.
And the Houthi government, which are the radical Islamic guerrillas,
right,
who basically are tying up the Red Sea by sinking everything that floats in it.
Yeah, right.
And tying up the Suez Canal. They've basically been hiding and been very hard to find.
Yeah.
And Israel tracked them down and killed them.
Right. The announcement was made Saturday by Mahdi al-Mashat, head of the Houthi Supreme Political Council, who confirmed multiple casualties from Thursday's strike. But this is where it gets a little funny, all right? The Times of Israel noted that while Mashat confirmed the prime minister's death. He did not clarify whether Defense Minister Mohammed Nasser al-Attaafi was among those killed. Israeli, for its part, said Friday that the operation was aimed at top Houthi leadership, including Defense Minister, Chief of Staff, and other senior officials, though it was still working to verify the results. According to the Times of Israel, Israeli fighter jets carried out what the IDF described as a complex operation against a compound where senior Houthi figures had gathered. Channel 12 further reported, without citing sources, that the IDF assesses the entire Houthi cabinet, including al-Rawi, and at least 12 ministers were likely eliminated through the assessment was not defined.
Boy, don't sell life insurance to anybody who is a Palestinian extremist. You'll lose your shit.
And they're going to have boat insurance.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty funny. We have time for this next story?
No, we got
Okay, we got a break. When we get back, Trump to declare housing emergency.
Yeah, real action to deal with homelessness.
All right.
When we come back.
See you on the other side.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Dick is absolutely brilliant, isn't he? He's amazing. I was talking to Greg Kelly, by the way. Oh, I forgot to tell you.
Huh?
I talked to Greg. Oh, is it Dick? Yeah, I go, you should be around him 24 hours.
Yeah, right.
I said to him, I go, he is freaking brilliant, but, we go to a restaurant. We could be in a helicopter. We come out of the restaurant. What's our car? Anyway, let's go to
homelessness and housing.
I thought we were going to go to Sandra.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to Sandra.
Sandra,
Hi.
hey.
And Sandra, we won't stop until you say clear.
Thank you so much. You guys are so funny. I was reading in the Epic Times yesterday about RFK, and he's saying that these vaccinations are not there to evaluate. They're getting paid to vaccinate, not evaluate. So, I was reading further, and they're saying that all these pediatricians, most of them, not all of them, make a lot of their money from giving these vaccinations. So, and here's what I wanted to ask you, Douglas, because I know you have a nice relationship with Donald Trump. You too, Dick, but my husband just got shingles, okay? Now, I don't believe in vaccinations. I never got the flu. I never got none of that. But this one, after seeing what my husband went through, he's better. But they say with the shingles, you can have nerve damage for the rest of your life. So this one I have a question mark about. So I wanted to ask you, Douglas, I know you have conversations sometimes with Donald Trump.
Right.
Maybe you can ask him research on Singrich. I think it's Singrix 2025, because they keep changing the formula, and who knows what they're putting in this stuff, and that's why I hesitate, but I don't want to get shingles either.
Wow.
Well, yeah, the problem, Sandra, is that there is adverse effects as a result of vaccinations are so significant that the government set up an index that tells people how many adverse reactions there are. And the COVID shots, by the way, are the highest in adverse reactions. And it just becomes very clear that they're dangerous. But the problem is that there is no real follow-up. And the industry is all over the place. And the inspectors, the pediatricians, the data people are all basically in the pay of the pharma companies. And in fact, it was before Kennedy, it was contracted out to the pharma companies. It would be like you contract out ball and strikes to the opposite dugout. And the result is that there is no really effective way of monitoring how safe vaccines are. And when Kennedy announces that he's not going to approve vaccine mandates, mainly for very young children, it's really a wise step and ultimately needed. Otherwise, the entire industry, the entire pharma takes over the whole situation.
And as he said, he goes, I'm not telling you can't get it. I'm stopping you from being forced to get it, the mandate. And that's what he said at that Congress. That was great. You know what he went through the other day with, what's the name?
Yeah, right.
Pocahontas or whatever her name is?
Warren.
Warren, right? And that's what he said. You don't have to get it. You know, it's not mandated anymore, but you still can get it. There were some controversy with some states where you couldn't get it, but now I think they reversed that.
Well, they say you couldn't get it. What that means is that the feds have not subsidized it.
Right. Well,
you
that's,
can get it.
Right.
You just have to pay for it.
But I think they're working that out. I saw something yesterday where they're working that out. So, all right, you want to get into this other story?
Yeah.
Trump to declare housing emergency. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Washington Examiner on Monday that President Trump might declare a national housing emergency this fall to address rising prices and dwindling supply. It would be the first national housing emergency since the Great Recession, when the housing bubble burst as President Barack Obama was preparing to take over the White House from President George Bush. Since taking office, Trump has declared 9 national emergencies ranging from immigration to trade, and in August added an emergency targeting violent crime in Washington. He's doing a great job there, isn't he? Now his administration is signaling that housing could be next. The Trump administration does not want to override state and local control, but Bessent suggested the White House is exploring options such as standardizing zoning codes, lowering closing costs, and even granting tariff exemptions for construction material. The remarks come as Trump seeks to position affordability as a centerpiece of Republicans' 2026 midterm platform. The no tax on tips provision in the recent signed One Big Badass Bill Act is part of that push, with the administration also eyeing housing relief as a key pillar. Bessent expressed optimism about the broader economy, predicting a big economic pickup in 26 by Federal Reserve rate. Go on, Trump. What's your name? I was going to call you Trump.
Yeah, right.
Go on, Dick.
Trump's also,
you ain't no Trump.
Trump is also making it harder for foreign students coming into the United States. International students looking to study in the U.S. are getting mixed signals from Trump. Days after Trump said it's very important to have Chinese students at American schools, it prompted a backlash, and his administration proposed a rule change saying that you couldn't stay in the country for more than 4 years to complete a degree.
That backlash is from his MAGA base.
Yeah. For too long, past administrations, this is Trump saying, have allowed foreign students and other visa holders to remain in the United States indefinitely, posing security risks, causing untold amount of taxpayer dollars and disadvantaging U.S. students.
Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said in a release, that's what they just said, what Dick just said, but hundreds of thousands of foreign students in the U.S. are graduate students with the PhD program taking as long as 8 years in some cases. Experts worry the new approval won't be a smooth process and would disrupt international student studies, causing them to seek universities in other countries despite the president looking for more students to come to the U.S.
Trump has already made sweeping student visa changes a key part of his immigration policy, and the State Department announced in August that more than 6,000 of such visas had been revoked since Trump came into office.
Foreign students also dealing with new screening procedures that have many scrubbing their social media in fear. And now in order to stay in the U.S. for a longer degree, they would have to apply to reauthorization through United States citizenship and immigration. The problem advocates say is that the USCIS is already backed up, and delays in reauthorizations would put education plans at risk.
Now, you know, you've read that there was a stalemate in the negotiations with Russia over Ukraine. After coming on and talking about how great they would be in Alaska, the Kremlin began to attack Ukraine again. So Trump has just okayed new missiles for Ukraine.
Yeah, he approved the sale of thousands of cheap, extended range missiles to Ukraine to provide the country with powerful new strike capability. The $825 million package of 3,000 plus extended range attack munition, ERAM, extended range attack munition, missiles, and GPS navigation kits marks the first major delivery of new weapon systems to Ukraine. The stockpile could be delivered within 6 weeks. Following another night of deadly Russian strikes on Ukraine, the State Department said on Thursday that sale would improve Ukraine's capability to meet current and failure threats by further equipping it to conduct self-defense and regional missions. Confirming the news, Zelensky's chief of staff said ERAM, extended range attack munition missiles, and 3,300 navigation modules to counter spoofing will be procured. The announcement of the arms sale was delayed until Trump submits Vladimir Putin and Zelensky to Trump summits with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky, U.S. officials told.
And to spare you more pronunciation of Ukrainian names, after the break, we'll talk about how Trump is moving the Space Command from Colorado to Alabama.
I just say he and her, or
right.
I make up a name.
But don't worry so much about the Houthi names because they'll be dead.
But you know
by
it's
the time
Italians.
you learn how to pronounce them.
You know it's Italians. Like you would be Morris the cat. You wouldn't be Dick Morris. We just give you names. All right, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Somebody says the D&D show.
No, Dick and Doug.
Yeah, that doesn't
Bad
work.
enough.
Yeah, it's bad enough.
Chris, a pediatrician, says we're wrong on vaccines.
Let's hear Chris.
Let's hear it, Chris.
Okay, so first of all, what that lady said is very incorrect. All right, one, we don't really make any, as pediatricians, we make practically nothing from vaccines. It all goes to the vaccine companies. We don't make anything, okay, as a pediatrician. That's number one.
Yeah, but the entire structure of vaccination scrutiny
my company
is paid
pays
by the drug companies.
A certain amount to administer the vaccine, which is really minimal.
Okay, but
You
go
pay
ahead
for
with
the
your basic
vaccine,
point
and
about
you barely
vaccines.
make your money back when you take into account if a vaccine expires or spills or whatever.
Yeah, but
you
Chris,
actually
go
make
to your
practically
basic point
nothing
about
on
vaccines.
That's number one. That's wrong, completely wrong. Number two, if you want to talk about any vaccine other than COVID, I'm willing to tell you that these have all been tested. They've all been, run through everything that can possibly run through. Polio, do you really want polio back? Do you really want measles back? The Hib vaccine has prevented deafness, death through respiratory disease.
Chris, I hate to interrupt you, but I want to make the point that I think that the concern about their forcing COVID vaccines on people,
Especially
including
children.
has created a backlash that is hurting all vaccines in the country.
Right.
And I think that there is, I believe that polio and whooping cough and all the other measles, those Band-Aids, I think people ought to get those shots. I think they ought to take their kids to get those shots. I think it's irresponsible not to. But I think it is their decision. I think we're dealing here with a basic civil liberties concept, which is that you can basically control what goes into your own body. And I get the argument that a contagious disease has to be hit at every level.
I understand that also.
Yeah.
But I'm on both sides of this. I see it. So what do you think, Chris? Are you still on?
I am all for, if you want to make a decision about the COVID vaccine, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. I have no problem with that. The COVID vaccine did not go through the amount of testing that the other vaccines went through. Fine. COVID, when it comes to kids, they get COVID, they get a cold.
Yeah.
Who cares?
No, but your point,
All right.
I gather, is it's different
I'm
for
okay with
measles and other stuff, and
But
you're right about that.
No, do you want measles back?
No,
Do you want-
we agree with you on that one.
Right.
But thank you, Chris. We really appreciate
it. Good
Very
call.
good. Thank you.
Okay, now Google had a real threat of a $2.5 trillion lawsuit to break it up. And a federal judge refused to break up Google on Tuesday for monopolizing the search engines. District Court Judge Ahmed Mehta, I don't have to mispronounce
you have to try to
he's not
pronounce
going to
it.
get killed. He's not a Houthi.
He might be. Ahmed Mehta, he might be.
He rejected the Justice Department's request to force the $2.5 trillion company to spin off its Chrome browser and Android products. While Google dodged the most severe possible outcome, the judge ordered that the company must share some of its search data with competitors, a penalty that still narrowed in scope from what the government asked for.
Breaking up Google will have immediately made this the largest antitrust remedy in modern history, with the case drawing comparisons to '84 breakup of AT&T and the government's failed bid to split Microsoft.
Trump also threatened the EU with sanctions for their actions against Google and Apple. And the EU has been really aggressively pursuing these companies because they're American. And they want to bolster Europe vis-a-vis the United States. So on Friday, Trump threatened to launch a trade investigation to nullify what he said were discriminatory fines being leveled by Europe against U.S. tech companies such as Google and Apple. We can't let this happen to brilliant and unprecedented American ingenuity. And if it does, I will be forced to start a Section 301 proceeding, Trump said, to nullify the unfair penalties being charged to these tax-paying American companies, Trump wrote. He issued the threat hours after Google caught a nearly $3.5 billion penalty from the EU in a major antitrust case. The Post also came... The Google CEO thanked Trump after U.S.
Say the name. No, say the name.
Sundar Pichai.
Yeah, okay.
Thanked Trump after a U.S. judge issued a favorable ruling in the landmark antitrust case. Mm-hmm. The president complained in his social media post that Europe was effectively taking money that would otherwise go to American investments. And this is on top of the many other fines and taxes that have been issued by Google against American tech companies in particular.
Well, I'm going to jump back to 10, where Trump said it moved Space Command from Colorado to Alabama. Trump said on Tuesday he'll relocate the U.S. Space Command headquarters from Colorado to Alabama, noting the southern state's strong support for him while criticizing Colorado's voting practices. The move, first reported by Reuters, benefits a state that overwhelmingly supports Trump's 3 Republican presidential bids at the expense of one that opposed them. It makes sense of the latest ESG trends affecting companies and governments with the Reuters Sustainable Switch newsletter. We love Alabama. I only won it by about 47 points. What does that mean, 47%?
He won by 47%.
Yeah, right.
It's the best state in the country.
Right. I don't think that's influenced my decision.
But go on to hit 13, his manufacturing jobs.
Yes, this is good, too. U.S. manufacturing activities picked up sharply in August, according to a pair of surveys released Tuesday. Hold on one second, Dick. Go on with that, because I got to switch over.
U.S. manufacturing activity picked up sharply in August, offering mixed but cautiously encouraging signals for the industrial economy as new orders return to growth and output surge. This is the opposite of what the economists had been warning. The S&P U.S. manufacturing climbed to 53, its highest reading in over 3 years, up from 50 in July. The report pointed to a significant acceleration in production, robust hiring, and growing order books, conditions last seen during the post-pandemic manufacturing boom of 22. Purchasing managers reported that U.S. manufacturing was running hot over the summer. The rebound was partially fueled by companies stockpiling goods amid fears of further tariff increases. So the predictions of the economists and the experts that this would be terrible, that the tariffs would absolutely kill American manufacturing, are proving to be totally untrue. Now, Trump also has ended collective bargaining rights for most federal workers. Last week, Trump issued a pre-Labor Day order ending collective bargaining with several federal unions that work on national security issues.
This is a big step in the right directions. As we said many times, when politicians negotiate with unions, taxpayers always lose. The Liberal Center for American Progress estimates that over 80% of civilian federal workers are no longer covered by collective bargaining agreements. That represents 1 out of every 15 workers covered. The biggest remaining area of public sector unionization is among state and local workers, while only 1 in 3 government workers in the U.S. belongs to a union. About 85% of state and local government employees are in unions. To accelerate the flourishing worker freedom movement across the country, the states need to follow President Trump's lead, along with states like Wisconsin, and end collective bargaining for their public employees.
Yeah. There is no such thing as state and local government in the United States anymore. There's federal government and there are the local unions. And the state and local governments are completely run by their labor unions.
Never thought about it that way. That's
and what should be an adversarial process of the mayors and the governors negotiating with the unions is, in fact, totally corrupt. The unions are slipping them campaign contributions under the table in return for their increasing benefits.
As we say, stuff under the on the arm.
And the only people who are screwed are the taxpayers.
Wow.
Now, the next story is one that is potentially very, very important. Trump said that he is open to bringing back insane asylums to institutionalize mentally ill individuals living on American streets. The president spoke at length about ongoing efforts to clean up D.C. During the exchange, Trump said he was willing to consider reopening insane asylums to deal with the growing crisis. What happened here is that basically there was huge populations of people who lived in mental hospitals, in institutions. And in the 80s and the 90s, when vaccinations came out that would have psychotropic drugs that could let a schizophrenic lead a normal life on the street and in public, the mental hospitals closed down, and they forced a lot of these people out. And for many
When was this? Around when?
The 80s and
Wow,
90s.
I didn't know this.
And this was a very constructive thing for many, many people who were mentally ill. My wife had a good friend who was schizophrenic, and she led a completely normal life. There would have been no reason to institutionalize her. But the problem is that many, many mentally ill people won't take the drugs. And as a result, they are schizophrenic, and they wander the streets, and they kill people.
So if they institutionalized, they would have to take the drug. That's your point.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the point is that you don't want to lock them up when it's perfectly possible for them to lead a normal life outside of an institution.
But
if they won't take the drug, you got to worry about that.
Interesting.
So during the exchange, Trump was asked if he was willing to reconsider opening insane asylums. Yes, I would. They used to have them, and you never saw people like we had. You know, we never used to have them. What happened in states like New York and California that had them? New York had a lot of them, being mental institutions. They released them all into society because they couldn't afford it.
Unbelievable.
You know, it's very expensive. But they were all over New York. I remember I was growing up, Creedmoor, near Creedmoor. They had a place. Creedmoor had a lot of them. Bellevue, but they were closed by a certain governor, Rockefeller. Oh. And I remember when they did that, it was a long time ago, and I said, they didn't release these people, and they did. They released them into society, and what you have, it's rough, and it's a rough situation. Trump concluded that leaving severely mentally ill people untreated and on the streets of American cities puts everybody at risk, because you can't have these people walking around, he said. So Trump said he's open to bringing back insane asylums to institutionalize mentally ill individuals living on American streets. During the exchange, Trump said he was willing to consider reopening insane asylums. They used to have them, and you never saw people like we had, they used to have them. Now, of course, that begs the question of are you willing to reopen the idea of forcing someone into a mental hospital if they want to live out on the street? And that's going to be a very important question, particularly if we reopen insane asylums.
I can't believe they closed them. I didn't know that.
Used to be
How could they
something
do
called
that?
a vagrancy law that said that if you were just wandering the streets,
Sure.
living on the street, with no obvious means of support was the legal thing, you could be institutionalized. But with the closing of the mental hospitals, you really can't be anymore. And that has been directly responsible for the homelessness.
All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about Browser wants the troops to stay
in D.C.
Yeah.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick and Doug Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. This is Dick Morris with Doug DePiro.
Dick, before I get into the Browser wants Trump's troops to stay, let's just get into this asylum thing where they closed it down. We have upstate, there's Wingdale, I think it's called, and that's closed. I don't know if it was closed then, but
during the Rockefeller administration as governor, New York State had a large number of people, I think 100,000, in mental hospitals. And anyone who was found wandering the street, sleeping there, who we would now consider just normal homelessness, risks being locked up, and cops would pick them up and force them into mental hospitals.
90s, you're saying? This is in the 80s and
until
90s?
the 80s and 90s.
Uh-huh.
And then Rockefeller stopped it. And the reason he stopped it was that there were now drugs that you could take and live a normal life being outside of a mental hospital. And this medication permitted schizophrenics to live normal lives. And like I said, Eileen had a close friend who is schizophrenic, and she was leading a very happy, healthy life.
But she was taking her meds.
But she was taking the meds.
Yeah, right.
And now there are a lot of people who won't take the meds. And as a result, they're dysfunctional. And at best, they're living on the street and vagrant. And at worst, they're going around killing people.
So Trump is looking to put these facilities back in place.
That's
right. Wingdale is still, it's absolutely beautiful. These giant buildings. It's still sitting there empty. There's a spot right there would take 5,000 people, I'm sure. I don't know.
But the issue is, do you require it? The issue is when you pick somebody up and they're living on the street, and they say, I want to live on the street. I'm okay living on the street. I don't want to take schizophrenic meds. I don't want to take the psychotropic drugs, and that's my right.
So what would have to happen is when he gets arrested for whatever it might be, then a judge has to look at him and say,
yeah, but
you're
if it's
not
just vagrancy, if it's just you're there, it's a real question that has to be addressed. And we've swept it under the rug by closing these institutions. And now Trump is reopening them. And that's going to be a very important issue.
That's going to be difficult, too, but after what you just said.
Yeah.
How are you going to get these guys to,
now, there
judges
there is a thought that I've had, which is that maybe you require people to get a patch or to get an implant that releases the drug involuntarily.
Yeah,
but I don't
that's
think.
not going to.
Okay, but go ahead with 16.
Right. Yeah, this is good. Mayor Muriel Bowser on Tuesday welcomed federal law enforcement officials to stay in D.C. indefinitely, a powerful indication of her willingness to cooperate with Trump's effort to take over public safety in the capital city. By law, Trump's federalization of the D.C. police force lasts 30 days, and it's set to expire next week. Bowser's announcement may quell any showdown over what happens after that deadline passes by authorizing continued cooperation between the city and the federal. I mean, listen, it's common sense if it's safe all of a sudden after a month now. Why wouldn't you want it to just like Chicago? We have a story coming up.
Yeah.
They don't want it, and they're putting trucks up and all kinds of things, to stop. This is common sense. All right, we have something else?
Yeah, we do. And this one is very important and has not been reported widely, but I'm glad we have this show with the chance to do it. Putin and Xi, the leaders of Russia and China, were standing shoulder to shoulder on September 3rd, and the hot mic captured them talking to each other about increasing longevity through organ transplants and saying you could possibly live to 150 years old. The conversation was live-streamed through Chinese state media to billions online, and television made international headlines as China watchers scrutinized the implications, many pointing to long-standing concerns about forced organ transplanting. When we get back, we'll talk about this, but this is going to be a big international issue. In China and Russia, they may be forcing people to give up organs to permit the privileged elite to live longer, including those in power.
Wow!
And that's they're doing that now in China, particularly with Falun Gong protesters. So when
this is right out of a movie.
I know. We'll talk about this when we come back.
Whatever. Unbelievable.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick and Doug Show. Dick Morris and Doug DePiro, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
First of all, there's no one in the middle. You got clowns to the left, jokers to the right. So you're the joker. I could be the clown.
Okay.
There's no one in the middle here.
Stuck in the middle with you.
Yeah, but I don't know who's in the middle.
Okay, so go back to September 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Putin and Xi, the dictators of Russia and China, were talking at a conference, at the celebration, actually, of the end of World War II, at a military parade.
Maybe they got caught on hot mic or something?
Got caught on hot mic. And Xi, the leader of China, said, earlier people lived to 70, but these days at 70 is still a child. Then Putin replied, as biotechnology advances, human organs can be continuously transplanted, allowing us to become younger and younger, perhaps even achieving immortality.
God.
Both Putin and Trump and Xi are 72 years old. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of New York in the U.S., shook his head and said, I'll tell you, we've heard some horrific stories of these organ transplants and all of this in China that they're willing to take from unwilling donors.
Oh, God.
The fact is they were caught on a hot mic, and it's very, very telling. It tells you what their worldview is in contrast to ours. Nina Shea, the director of the Center for Religious Freedom at Hudson Institute, echoed Johnson's view. The unguarded conversation between these two tyrants lends credibility to our concerns that they are creating a real-life science fiction dystopia by forcing organ harvesting from those they see as political enemies. A human rights group in 2020 found hundreds of Chinese doctors to have trained at U.S. institutions, and Shea urged that Congress act immediately, saying that Xi and Putin are scheming to live forever through organ transplantation only adds to the urgency. The source of their organs remains a question. In 26, several witnesses came forward alleging mass killing of prisoners of conscience for their organs in secret facilities in China. The targets, they said, were detained practitioners of Falun Gong, a meditation practice that the Chinese regime has been persecuting for 30 years. The high witnesses described doctors removing organs, such as corneas, and cremating bodies to cover up the evidence. While China, under mounting international pressure, set up an organ donation system in 2015, experts who studied the Chinese organ donation data say they're too neat to be true. According to a 2019 study, the only explanation is data manipulation. The London-based tribunal China Tribunal concluded after a year-long investigation that forced organ harvesting was still taking place in China on a significant scale. Falun Gong practitioners, according to the tribunal, were the primary victim group, with other persecuted minorities such as the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, Tibetans, and House Christians are also at risk.
The European Parliament, a panel of the UN-affiliated human rights experts, and the State Department have voiced alarm over the Chinese regime's forced organ harvesting in recent years. In the United States, House lawmakers have voted twice to pass bills to impose sanctions on perpetrators of organ transplant abuse in China. 2 bills are now awaiting the Senate action. This is like a bad movie. Remember, I think it was The Immortals. It was a little show a long time ago. Maybe it was a movie where the rich guy was always after the guy that was an immortal. He could live forever. Some rich guy wanted his blood or whatever. It was that type of thing. This is what this seems like.
Yeah, it is.
These guys are going for...
It is. And as the technology of organ transplants improves, as President Putin says, the chances of you living forever are really increasing.
First of all, it's never going to happen. First, God's not going to let it happen. Number 2, what about your bones and what are other things that are going to fail?
I don't know if God's in the Politburo.
He doesn't have to be.
Yeah, right.
He's in us.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Getting back to the United States, Florida is considering banning vaccine mandates.
Florida officials announced Wednesday that they'll seek to make the state the first in the country without school vaccine mandates, with Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo.
It's a Houthi name.
No, it's not. It's almost Italian. It could be Spanish, but I think it's Italian. Ladapo. Comparing the requirements to slavery. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Ladapo, a longtime vaccine skeptic, said after announcing Florida's plan to end all vaccine mandates without exception, "Who am I to tell you what your child should put in their body? I don't have the right. Your body is a gift from God." Once again, God, he added. Ladapo said his department will repeal what mandates are under his control, and the state legislature will have to take care of the rest. School districts in Florida, like others across the country, require vaccinations for polio, diphtheria, measles, rubella, pertussis, and tetanus, and other communicable diseases. The decision comes as vaccination rates among children are already on the decline, and as the federal government has taken the COVID-19 vaccine off recommended list for healthy children. Florida also announced it would be creating a Make America Healthy Again commission led by the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis. I think that this is something that has great potential, DeSantis said. We already done a lot. I don't think there's any state that has done even close to what we have. Florida's decades-old vaccine mandates for daycare facilities and public schools include shots for whooping cough, polio, chickenpox, hepatitis B, and measles, among others, according to the state health, whatever.
Physicians and other health experts have long supported school vaccination requirements as a way of stopping the spread of infectious diseases. Many in the public health world were deeply troubled by the announcement and warned that removing school vaccine mandates will have ripple effects across Florida and eventually the rest of the country, particularly because millions of tourists visit the Sunshine State every day. So this is going to be a big controversy in coming months and years. Now, just when you think the Clintons have gone away, they're back. Chelsea Clinton, Bill and Hillary's daughter,
no way,
is considering running for Jerry Nadler, my high school classmate and former roommate, just announced he's retiring in Congress.
About time.
And because the district includes much of Manhattan, it's kind of the celebrity seat in Congress. And
where does she live?
Somewhere in the district.
I know she's not in Chappaqua.
In Manhattan.
She got married to, I forget.
Schlossberg.
Yeah, some rich dude. Who knows?
Anyway, the point is that there is a real possibility that she'll get into the race. Now,
I'd like to see what she's about. I would like to see that. I don't like her, but I would like to see.
Well, what's going to happen, I think, is there's rumors that Schlossberg, Caroline Kennedy's husband, will get into the race. There's rumors that Chelsea will get into the race. And I think that'll happen after a while when all the celebrity dust goes away. They'll choose some state assemblyman or state senator
got brains.
or city councilman that's been there for 100 years and will take the seat. But in the meantime, it's going to be fun to talk about it.
Well, the young kids like that kind of crap. You know what I mean? Oh, celebrity, young kid. Unaccompanied children at the border. This is horrible. ICE officers have slashed the cross-border smuggling of migrant children and youths by arresting the U.S.-based illegal migrants who fund the smuggling, often with wages from U.S. jobs. The Associated Press on September 2nd that the illegal migrant parents of smuggled children have been arrested when they try to pick up children from government shelters. Managing Director of Human Rights at the National Center for Youth Law said the change provides U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement a built-in opportunity to arrest parents, something she said has already happened. The arrests are deterring migrants from using the government-run Unaccompanied Alien Children UAC smuggling route, which ferried more than 50,000 migrant youth and children northwards during President Biden's term.
Yeah, arrests at the border for unaccompanied children have dropped by 93% under Trump. And we talked a lot about the taking away American jobs and stuff like that. But here we're talking about children being basically sold into slavery in the United States, having come illegally into the U.S., and Trump is really stopping that.
So here's what he said. In July of 25, border officials picked up, as Dick said, 515 children and youths at the border, down from 7,501 in July of 24. The arrival numbers show a 93% drop in the inflow. The decline will help our children in schools, many of which are still overcrowded by the massive smuggling, and encourage Joe Biden, what is pro-migration border chief, whatever, Mayorkas. So, plus, these children that are unaccompanied, right? Where are they going? Yeah. We have a story coming up.
Well,
with
they're
that.
being sold into slavery.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the Democrats don't care. It seems like they just don't care about this kind of thing. And they hate Trump. Don't do this now. Yeah. All right, go, Dick. You go to the next thing. I'm getting sick to my stomach.
The Senate Republicans are going to speed the confirmation of judicial nominations by Trump. The Democrats have been slow walking them, wanting to keep the radical left-wing judges functioning as long as they could. But now Republicans are going to move forward with a plan to fast-track dozens of Trump's nominees with a permanent change in Senate rules.
Leaving a conference lunch on Wednesday, GOP leaders signaled that appointees could soon be processed in batches, with the Senate able to bundle and confirm a committee's nominee in the single floor vote. Currently, the nominees are voted on one by one at time-consuming process that has only gotten slower as Democrats slow up the blanket procedure. We want to get this done prior to the upcoming Rosh Hashanah recess, said Barrasso, Senator Barrasso, the state majority whip. The chain mirrors one proposed by Amy Klobuchar, whatever, who, as Rule Committee chairwoman, pressed for leadership to be able to call up 10 nominees from the same committee at once. But Barrasso said there might be no upper bound on the number of nominees who can be bundled on the floor.
Meantime, Trump is vowing on to Chicago.
Are we going to break soon? Maybe we'll take this after the break. All right, we'll do it right after.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. I had a long talk with Trump last night by phone, and I told him that his focus on crime in D.C. and other cities has moved him up 5 points in the polls. And he said, that's significant. And I said, yeah, you've been stuck at 50% for a while, and this is moving you up to 54 and 55%, a whole new front. And I said, the irony of this is that the stupid Democrats are taking the other side.
Makes no sense.
Whether it's the narcotics boat in the Caribbean where they're attacking you for sinking the damn thing.
Sending a guy out of the country.
Yeah, right.
Whatever his name was.
Exactly. Whatever they were attacking you for taking over D.C., they're coming off course as pro-crime. And it's setting up a fantastic issue for you in the future.
Well, that's why I said he should endorse Mandami, because then they won't vote for him, right? You want to talk about this? This is great.
On to Chicago.
This is great. Trump said we're going into Chicago with National Guard troops, but didn't say when. He railed against crime in Chicago and against Illinois Governor J.B. Prick, a Democrat.
Pritzker, he may be our opponent in 28.
All right, J.B. the Prick, a Democrat. He said he would welcome a call from Mr. Pritzker telling him to send in the troops. Chicago's a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. This is what Trump said. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it now. We're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it, Mr. Trump said. You know, Trump's way of sharing responsibility and partisanship, that's what he's doing here. If they would call him up and say, okay, we'll do it, then he's kind of sharing it with the governor, but they're not doing it. He said he has an obligation to protect his country. Mr. Trump also talked about how Maryland Governor Westmore, a Democrat, invited him to walk down Baltimore streets. I watched him over the weekend trying to explain that Baltimore, what they need is housing. No, they don't need housing. They need to get rid of the criminals, he said. These are hardcore criminals. I'm very proud of Washington. It serves as a template, he said, and we're going to do it elsewhere. Earlier Tuesday on social media, he slammed Chicago as the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far. At least 54 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. Unbelievable.
My God. 54 people shot over a weekend.
The weekend.
And it wasn't Vietnam.
And 8 people of those were killed. 8 of them were killed out of the 54. So this is ridiculous. The last 2 weekends were similar. The president has said numerous times that he could send National Guard into Chicago, Baltimore, New York to duplicate what they've done in D.C. Wouldn't it be nice to say that about Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and even the crime-drenched city of Baltimore? Mr. Trump posted this Monday. It can happen, and it can happen fast. Work with us. He's so right. This is ridiculous. Why wouldn't they want to make their city safer? This makes no sense.
Well, it's a reflexive Trump derangement syndrome.
Exactly.
Where they'll oppose anything Trump proposes.
Doesn't matter.
And they end up, and Trump knows that. So by taking positions on crime, he's ultimately maneuvering the Democrats into supporting crime.
Exactly. Right. So he knows what he's doing. But he still really wants to make the cities, safe.
He does.
He's less
absolutely.
than having that political fight. He doesn't really care. I don't think and like I always say to you, I don't think he cares about legacy. I really don't. I think he knows his legacy is going to be a great president that's done all of these things.
Yeah.
He doesn't have one thing he's worried about.
Okay, those who are technical wonks about congressional rules, pay attention. There is a procedure called pocket rescissions. Years ago, the president had the power to tell Congress, you're not going to spend this money even though you appropriated it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spend it. I'm going to rescission your appropriation. Then in 1974, Congress passed a law saying a rescission was illegal. Once Congress voted to do with spending, you had to go ahead and do it. Now, the Republicans are trying to do what they call a pocket rescission, in which they would, in which the president would cancel or impound congressional money at will. The so-called pocket rescissions, unilateral clawback of congressionally appropriated funds. And what they're saying is that if there's a rescission debate, that is, they're trying to cancel a rescission at the end of the fiscal year, when they're within, I think, 6 weeks of the end of the fiscal year, the president can unilaterally cancel the spending of the money, and Congress can't move against them.
What's the gist of this whole thing? Give it to me.
That there's a lot of money that Congress voted
Right.
that Trump wants not to be spent.
Got it.
And you can't get Congress to vote not to spend it because of the Democrats' need for 60 votes in the Senate. So
This rescission, so that's what that is.
rescission, yeah. And what Trump is now saying is, I'm going to make these rescissions while you're in recess. And because you're in recess, you can't come back to vote to stop me. And that's raising hell in Congress. And there's $5 billion at stake, largely in foreign aid and subsidies to other countries. And Trump is trying to kill it, and the Democrats are trying to preserve it. And Trump is saying, if you're not in session or you're going to go to recess, I can stop spending that money.
And where would that money then go?
Back to the Treasury.
Back to the Treasury. And then they have to allocate it somewhere else. Okay. All right. So Trump...
let's go to 25, I think, because he did 24, really.
Okay. That's you.
Yeah. This is important. A majority of under 40 voters prefer socialism, a new poll showed. Support for socialist policies and socialist candidates is now a majority position among younger voters in America. A new national survey by Rasmussen finds that 53% of likely U.S. voters under 39 would like to see a socialist candidate win the 28th presidential election.
Wait. Finds that 53% of likely voters would like to see a socialist candidate.
Well, a democratic socialist.
Wow.
They call themselves democratic socialists, so they know it's not a dictator.
18 to 39. Can you believe
53% of under 40 voters would like to see a socialist as president. 27% would not, and 20% aren't sure. Under 40-year voters were asked to agree or disagree with this statement. Major industries like healthcare, education, and big tech should be nationalized to give more control and equity to the people. 76% agreed. The survey shows that largely due to economic challenges, young Americans are increasingly turning to socialist candidates and radical collectivist policies. The fact that 3/4 of voters under 40 support nationalizing major industries is an incredibly disturbing trend that has to be taken seriously. Clearly, socialism is on the rise in the United States. So it's not just Mandami, it's all the way across the country.
Why don't we just send them to Venezuela and a couple of different places, where they have that?
And frankly, the offset to that is people who've lived under those regimes and know how terrible they can be in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, all kinds of countries.
Now, it said under 40, but it didn't say their status, where they're from, or
under 40
economical.
Nationally.
Yeah, it doesn't say white, black,
no,
brown.
but it's national, and that's why it's dangerous. This Mandami stuff is not just confined to New York. It's all over the place.
I don't really hard to get happy after that story, Dick.
Yeah, it is tough. And of course, as the economy improves under Trump, under capitalism, you got to hope that number comes down. But you don't know. Let's go to Kathy in North Carolina. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Thank you for taking my call. I live in North Carolina at present, but I lived in New York for 40 years. My question is, you are on the same wavelength with the president as far as thinking in politics is concerned. I know it's a chess game, but I don't understand what President Trump's rationale is with regard to backing Cuomo.
Yeah. Well, I'm against what he's doing on that. He's not backing Cuomo. He has refused to. But he's placing faith that Cuomo can stop Mandami, that
I
he
don't believe
sees
that.
as a unique threat to the country and to New York in particular. I think that's wrong. I think it's overthinking the case.
Yeah.
I think that
Leave it
Cuomo
be.
is getting a lot of votes because of his last name, because he used to be governor, and I think that if he were to be forced out of the race, I think those votes would not necessarily go to Mondami. But I think
they would. I don't see how you say no.
Well, I think the problem here is that we're dealing with voters who are following a Pied Piper in Mondami, and they're following him over the cliff. And and by pulling people out of the race, you're not necessarily going to win that.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Now, women are opposing marriage in the United States, and men are supporting it.
But listen, of course men are going to support this. They have their fun, and then they split, right? They can, the whole idea of marriage is to stay close and have a family. Now women don't want the family anymore, so why? So men are going, yeah, this is great.
But the biggest partisan divide in the United States is increasingly married versus single. It used to be men versus women, but now married men and married women are voting more or less similarly. The difference is, do you have children or not? And marriage and fertility rates have reached all-time lows in the U.S., as fewer people marry or have children, and these trends are likely to continue. In 2023, only 72% of 18-year-old women in the U.S. said they were likely to have children, down from 80% 20 years before, from 80% to 72. Though there are many likely reasons for declines, one possible factor is the way marriage and parenthood, particularly for women, are portrayed in the media and online discussions.
Yeah.
Popular press articles often declare that single women without children are happier than married women, with headlines such as "Women are happier without children," or "A spouse says happiness expert," or "4 reasons why single women are the happiest people on earth." Why so many single women without children are happy. Discussion on online forums such as Reddit ask, why do you think that single unmarried women without children are happier? These headlines are consistent with older survey data suggesting that parents are less happy than non-parents, especially in the U.S. They're also consistent with studies finding that parenthood is more positive for men than for women.
I have such a hard time with that. I would
However,
think women.
In addition, studies repeatedly find that married people are happier than unmarried people. Being married is the most important differentiator of happiness in America, with people who are married 30 points more likely to be happy than unmarried people. But little of the research is focused on women. It's unclear how marriage and motherhood are linked to one another and to women's happiness. There's a significant gender divide in the perception of marriage and happiness. A majority of both men, 58%, and women, 53%, agree that men who marry and have children are better off than those who do not.
Absolutely.
But only 32% of women believe that women who marry and have children live fuller, happier lives.
Well, they're morons.
At the same time, 55% of single women believe single women are generally happier than married women. A Pew survey in 24 showed that less than half of single women, 45%, eventually wanted to have children, while a majority of single young men, 57%, said parenthood was an important life goal for them.
It's part of what men are supposed to do.
Today, many single women perceive getting married or becoming a mother to be transitions of loss. But is this perception true? To better clarify how motherhood and marriage are linked to happiness, there was a survey, the Women's Well-Being Survey, conducted by YouGov in March of 25. The report showed that women are more likely to believe that having children makes you, women are less likely to believe that having children makes you happier. So this is really the whole media bias.
Right. This is
We've been more or less more and more watching how the media portrays having children as a burden. It portrays being single as being a good, wonderful lifestyle, and it's really having an effect. And politically, if you're single, if you're a single man, you're more likely to vote for Trump. If you're a single woman, you're never going to vote for Trump. You'll always vote for Democrats. And the issue of whether you're married or not is absolutely crucial in what your party divides.
You want to know one of the problems that I saw for 20, maybe more than that, 30 years? It started back then, where women used to say, "Oh, I want a career. I want to have my child and a career." I go, no, pick one. Maybe the guy stays home and you go have a career. But if you're going to have children, you stay home that's a career. That's a beautiful career. You don't have to work for IBM or some stupid company. Your children are more important than any company you could possibly work for. But the media, like you just said, they portray you as, there were people used to say, "Oh my God, your mother's home, she doesn't work." What are you talking about? She doesn't work. She's all day working and cooking and doing. So that's the problem. It's a mindset that they put in everywhere. The long march. It's part of the long march.
Yeah, it also you make money when women don't stay at home. When women go out and work, they're consumers, they're part of the marketplace, and companies make money selling them stuff.
Right.
Whereas people that stay at home aren't great customers.
And I know someone that told me that her babysitter and all the stuff she has to do almost makes as much as she makes when she brings home a paycheck. Right. I go, well, what are you doing? And then you got these moron kids that run around in church or run around in the supermarket that are never disciplined and they're not disciplined because the parents are guilty that they have the nanny. We got 2 minutes. The parents are guilty that they have a nanny all day long, so they bring them to a restaurant and the kids screaming and yelling, and parents don't want to,
Right. So, I would say, check, please.
No, I buy headphones on the plane. Okay. I got my Bluetooth headphones.
Now, Trump did something really dramatic this week. He ordered a airstrike that sank a drug smuggling boat in the Caribbean.
Now, you're going to love this. The far-left president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, a notoriously ardent cocaine advocate, denounced the U.S. precision strike against a drug-laden vessel in international waters as murder on Wednesday. We should have been less precise, maybe. If this is true, it is murder anywhere in the world, Petro wrote on social media. We have been capturing civilian transporting drugs for decades without killing them. Well, that's why they're still transporting the drugs, because you capture them and let
Those who transport drugs, he said, are not the big drug lords, but very poor young people from the Caribbean and Pacific.
Then get a different job, get a different career.
As part of its ongoing efforts to combat drug cartels in the Caribbean, the U.S. carried out a precision strike this week against a vessel loaded with drugs, killing 11 members of the Tren del Agua terrorist group.
Too bad.
Trump explained in a Truth Social post the strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics headed to the United States.
There you go.
Trump went on to declare, "Please let the service notice to anybody, even thinking of bringing drugs into the United States of America, beware."
You got to love this guy.
Venezuela's socialist president, dictator Maduro, claims that video footage of the strike published by Trump is fake.
So wait a minute. So where are we going? It was real or wasn't real?
He's saying,
right, I know.
Yeah. And their media guys said that using artificial intelligence tools, they're trying to show that the people in this boat were drug types, that it wasn't just a pleasure cruise.
Yeah, right.
On Wednesday, Interior Minister and long-suspected drug lord Cabello also claimed that the video is part of a strike is fake and part of a purported disinformation campaign from the U.S. against Venezuela. So
they want to have both things, it's obvious.
Yeah, but what's going on here is that Trump is fighting Maduro and the Venezuelan regime, not just because they're dictators, not just because they fix elections, not just because they persecute people, but because they're a drug cartel. He's saying your whole government is a drug cartel, and therefore we're opposing you not just based on your lack of democratic practices, but you are a drug cartel.
And you're not bringing that crap into my country.
And this reminds me very much of what President Bush did. I think Bush did to Panama, where he declared that the dictator there, Noriega, was the head of a drug cartel. And he sent troops into Panama and got him out of office. And Maduro
That was the debacle. That was the debacle, wasn't it? The Panama thing?
No, it worked nicely.
Oh, that was Grenada.
Grenada.
Yeah, right.
And the dictator of the country is still in jail in the United States. And he ought to be.
Good.
And I think that Maduro is afraid that that's what we're going to do in Venezuela. So when we knock that ship out and sink it, he's worried that his people are next. And it's going to be interesting to watch how Trump proceeds with Venezuela if he remains really aggressive.
When we get back, we'll talk about bipartisan backing for ban on Congress insider trading when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You notice he's not saying the Dick and Doug Show. I told him at the break. I don't like that.
He said that sounds like a comedy routine.
Sounds like some Abbott and Costello. So anyway, bipartisan. An unusual alliance emerged in the House on Wednesday as lawmakers who agreed on little else rallied support for a bill that would prohibit members of Congress and their families from owning and trading individual stocks. The group included darlings of the far right, the left, moderates, and many between. That's amazing right there. They gathered to promote a ban that polls well with voters and appeals to be finding new momentum after stalling out in previous sessions of Congress. Brian Fitzpatrick said, it's not every day you see this cast of characters up here, a moderate Republican. You're all smirking out there. That's a good thing. It speaks to the power of this cause. So that's good.
And that's really important. You look at Nancy Pelosi, who, based on an income...
She's still alive? I'm kidding.
Based on an income as a congressperson, she became a quadrillionaire, incredibly wealthy. Now, the fiction is that it was her husband that made the money and had nothing to do with her, and they never talked about stocks to each other. But that's all nonsense.
I just saw that Omar, what's her name, in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Is worth in the millions now.
Yeah, $3 million.
How's that possible?
Again, the potential for insider trading here is huge, and there's really nothing to prevent it. Has to change.
Nigel Farage takes inspiration from Trump. Brexit leader Nigel said that he's taken inspiration from the MAGA movement as he seeks to win the next British general election after a meeting with President Trump in the White House on Wednesday. Hey, Dick, there's no term limit for these guys in England across the pond?
No. And there's been increasing focus on how Britain is becoming a Muslim state.
Oh, God.
And what do they call? There was a book out calling London Londonistan or something like that.
Oh, my God.
And I think you're seeing more and more of this.
That's the caliphate. I think I say that wrong. It's the caliphate. Whatever.
Caliphate.
Yeah.
And the hope in Britain now is Nigel Farage, who I worked closely with in the Brexit campaign. And he stood with Trump's longest international ally. And he met him in the Oval Office, during which he warned of the erosion of freedom of speech in Britain and Europe while sparring with congressional Democrats. Following his meeting with the president, the Reform UK boss, that's the name of his party now, hosted a reception for some top U.S. figures in the Trump administration. I'm leading a political party that I think is going to win the next general election, Farage told the crowd. I've drawn amazing inspiration from the MAGA movement in this country and many of you in this room I've met before as I've traveled both the length and breadth of America.
Farage added that He has consistently stood behind Trump, stood behind the MAGA movement. I have never wavered in my thoughts or my views for 1 minute, even when it was an unpopular thing to do. So you got to say he stood up for his beliefs.
Well, he's been wonderful, and he's the reason that Brexit passed. And,
you had a lot to do with him, did you?
Yeah, I did. I worked closely with him. Now, Elon Musk is getting richer. He could get.
It's only $1 trillion.
He could get $1 trillion from Tesla under the New Deal.
Amazing.
Tesla
hold
CEO.
Hold on 1 second. Now you know the left is going to say, see, Trump put him in thing, and that's all why he did it. Trump's paying off his rich people. You know that's going to be like tomorrow.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk could be in line for a payout of $1 trillion if his electric car company meets a series of extremely aggressive targets over the next 10 years, according to company documents. These would be targets posed by the company stockholders.
Tesla, which is leaning heavily into robotics and AI, said in a regulatory filing on Friday that the package has a dozen share tranches, portion of money, that include awards for Musk if targeted range from car production to the total value of the company are met over that time period. Very early in the plan, Tesla would have to reach a market valuation of $2 trillion and achieve 20 million vehicle deliveries. Tesla delivers less than 2 million vehicles in 24. That milestone would also require 1 million robotic taxis in commercial operation and the delivery of 1 million artificial intelligent bots. I don't know.
So
what
basically,
that is.
it's the Teslas. The Musk is going to make $1 trillion of personal money if he's successful in leading this country into robotics and into artificial
Wait,
intelligence.
I don't see it as personal money. I saw it as $1 trillion going back into his company or him.
No, it's him.
Yeah, really?
It's him.
Wow.
He could be in line for a personal payout of $1 trillion if his car company meets a series of extremely aggressive targets over 10 years.
He's been one of the richest people in the world for several years. Musk would also receive more voting power over Tesla under the proposed plan. The EV company is set to hold its annual shareholders meeting on November 6th. Tesla's last shareholder meeting was on June 13th of last year, where investors voted to restore Musk's record $44.9 billion paycheck that was thrown out by a Delaware judge earlier that year. Well, how would that be? A
court in Delaware said that you're not entitled to it.
How is that possible?
They just did. The board of Tesla voted this compensation for him.
Yeah.
And the Delaware court said, no, it's excessive. And they just threw it out. It's going to probably be reversed on appeal. But it was incredible.
I mean, everything he does is excessive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what the guy does,
Right.
you know? So good for him. A condition in the 11th and 12th tranches of the plan includes Musk coming up with framework for someone to succeed him as CEO. Wow. The goals set out for Musk and Tesla are extremely ambitious given recent tumult at the Texas company.
Yeah.
All right. You're up there, Dick.
There's a proposal that Trump made during the campaign that I encouraged him to make. And in fact, the guy that encouraged me to encourage him was Chris Ruddy, the head of Newsmax. And he suggested to me that we ought to cap the interest rate that people have to pay when they default on loans to credit card companies. If you default on your Visa loan or your MasterCard loan, and MasterCard comes after you, they can charge you as much as 25 or 30% interest for that. And the argument is that this is just outrageous, and the usury laws don't prohibit it. So Trump said when he was campaigning that he would consider capping interest rates on defaulted credit cards. A study just came out that said Americans would save $100 billion a year in interest rate costs if Trump's campaign proposal to cap credit card rates at 10% were implemented.
So the credit card is going to lose $100 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
But they're making out incredible amounts of money if you default.
Right.
It's almost a death penalty for it.
Okay, good.
Further, banks and credit card companies would be able to withstand and maybe even profit if there were to be a national cap on interest rates. The paper found that banks would still be able to earn a profit on most of their customers, even if interest card rates were capped at 15%, and if banks continued to offer rewards and perks like points and airplane lounge access. If interest rates were to be capped at 10%, the business model would get more difficult for the banks, but they could still make money off most credit card customers. When I was speaking with Trump on Thursday, I suggested this. I said, you ought to look at that report. It was a good promise you made in the campaign, and it would be a great way now of acting even with high interest rates.
Sure.
And he said, I'll think about it. Now, Robert Kennedy Jr. has come under heavy fire lately for his positions on vaccines, but he's been labeled a charlatan and dangerous, but his net approval in Trump's cabinet is now 7 points. The guy the Democrats want burned at the stake for questioning Big Pharma is polling better than Vance, Hesketh, or Rubio. RFK Jr. is not a drag on President Trump. He's not the most embattled. In fact, he's the most popular official in Trump's cabinet, according to this poll.
That's
CNN
beautiful.
said.
That's beautiful. Did you see that whole thing with him?
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
And he came out of it a big winner, is what this is saying.
He did. Anyway, we got to go. We got a break. We'll be back with some.
When we come back, more details about the Russiagate hoax.
Thank you.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Steve from Brooklyn has an interesting point, because there's a news story that I read earlier, which is that Putin and Xi, the leaders of Russia and China, were caught in a hot mic conversation at an event last weekend, speculating that they could live to be 150 each if they were alive because of organ transplants.
And Steve's got a couple of movies. I was trying to think of the movie.
And we talked about the potential that China and Russia would resort to involuntarily harvesting organs from people so their leaders could live forever.
A horror movie.
And Steve has a comment on that.
Hey, Steve.
You bet, guys. Do you remember the movie Soylent Green with Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson about the commercialization of cannibalism to feed the higher-ups in society? And Soylent was the combination of soybeans and lentils, which made it sound harmless to the public.
Right.
But it was a horrifying movie.
Yeah, but you have a more recent example, I think, don't you?
Yes. Oh, and by the way of the Revenge of the Ghost on all these horrors, there was the horror movie called The Hands of Orloff, about a pianist that wasn't as good as another pianist. So he has the hands cut off and he kills off the better pianist.
Oh, that's pleasant.
But the hands come to life and then strangle him in the end. And this is what might happen with all these involuntary organ transplants in China.
Yes.
You can't transplant the brain. And the brains of the apparatchiks in the Communist Chinese government, they think they're going to live forever? Sure, they are.
Do it.
But all the organs are going to work against the original body. They're going to have to be taking suppressants their whole life.
We don't know that. The important thing here is that China and Russia may resort to involuntary harvesting
that's the problem.
Of organs.
Right, not the act that they're going to live.
Harvesting organs might really become the latest fad, the latest criminal enterprise.
It'll be international crime.
Yeah.
That's what's going to have to happen.
Very, very dangerous.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's no way it's going to work. You're not living forever. Your body's not going to let you, like you just said, the brain,
yeah, but
other things.
What's important here is the harvesting of organs.
Right. So make it an international crime, right? How does that happen?
The Clinton Foundation it was under scrutiny by the FBI, and the FBI, the Biden people, shut it down. And there's increasing evidence that federal prosecutors discussed the prospect of investigating the Clinton Foundation, according to in 2015. But by February 2016, DOJ officials were allegedly signaling to FBI agents looking into corruption that they were not interested in moving ahead with the case.
Of course.
Before FBI and DOJ leadership successfully shut it down, the investigation had become a sprawling look as to whether Secretary of State Hillary Clinton used the State Department to offer preferential treatment to Clinton Foundation donors, something I've been shouting from the rooftops for 10 years.
Yeah.
The FBI field offices in New York, Washington, Little Rock had each begun reviewing the evidence. In 2016, according to the memo, the field office investigations were ordered by the FBI to be consolidated into just one in the New York office. Just a few weeks later, prosecutors in New York signaled they did not want to move forward with the case. So this is probably the greatest instance of corruption in the Clintons' career. It's why I believe Hillary resorted to an off-the-shelf server out of the reach of Washington to do these deals. When Hillary became Secretary of State, the Clintons licked their chops.
Yeah.
And they said, what we will do here is set up basically a RICO, a criminal organization. And they set up a company called Tenneco and went around the world meeting with foreign leaders.
Pay to play.
And saying, do you need anything from the United States government? Is there any approval you're looking for? And when they learned that there was from a foreign dictator or foreign leaders, they said, hey, why don't you invite Bill Clinton to give a speech and pay him $1 million? And they did, particularly Kazakhstan did. And that's money that went right into Bill Clinton's banking account, which was a joint account with Hillary Clinton. So basically, the Secretary of State was selling access to her office and selling positive decisions in return for rulings from the Clinton Foundation. And it's a huge instance of corruption.
You know,
that was never prosecuted.
Shortly after Trump took office, Democratic staffers on the House Intelligence Committee were asked to work their contacts throughout the intelligence community for any Russia-related information that could be damaging to Trump, including information related to General Flynn. But the FBI during Trump's first term and later during Biden's presidency appeared to do little with the evidence agent had gathered. The shift for brains leaking the investigations was close to 6 years after the whistleblower first approached the Bureau, and Schiff never faced consequences after leaks that appeared to originate from his committee. Flynn resigned. This is horrible. He's a good friend, and I love this guy. Flynn resigned from his National Security Advisor post on February 13th, 17, after less than a month on the job, thanks to leaks that suggested that he had issued misleading public statements about a call he had with then Russian ambassador to the U.S. during the transition in December for Trump. But the FBI eventually concluded that so many people had access to the highly sensitive details of Flynn's unmasked phone calls that it was impossible to identify any suspects. Yet the only person charged in the Flynn saga was Flynn himself, which is horrible. In 2017, Justice Department officials said he denied discussing sanctions with the Russian ambassador during the phone call when he unmasked the transcript.
What happened was Trump appointed Flynn as his national security advisor. And Flynn was really going to take no prisoners. He had cleaned up the CIA. He totally changed the operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the intelligence community was scared to death of his power. So they decided to throw him out. And the way they did that was to set up a phony conversation with an FBI agent where Flynn said that he was in touch with the Russian ambassador to warn him that there was anti-Russia stuff coming down.
And they got him.
Which was part of his job.
Yeah.
But he wasn't officially confirmed then, so it was technically a violation of law. And based on that, they screwed Flynn and got him thrown out.
And
of office.
the only reason why he bailed out is because they threatened his son. We got to go, and that's it. But they threatened his son and his business and some other stuff. It was just horrible. You have to look into
General Flynn is one of the great men of our time, who has been just horribly crucified
I love the
by
guy.
the deep
Yeah,
state.
he's a great guy. Good friend of ours. Anyway, we got to go. It was an honor to be here, Mr. Morris.
Come on, I like Dick and Doug.
No, that sounds a little
I think it's
gayish. You know, there's a little bit Dick and Doug. Get the hell
Bye-bye.
out of here.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?